Okay, this is part 2, and so we're just going to review what we did in the first part here. We had this triangle, and it's not a right angle triangle, so I can't use SOHCAHTOA, so you've got to eliminate that from your brain, that SOHCAHTOA is an option for you. I did find out that this angle right here is 155, from 180 subtract 9 subtract 16, and then what I went and I looked for what I called opposite partners. And really what you have here is, and you're going to see this in a second, you've got a fraction here, sine A over A and sine B over B. Well, you need to fill those values in. And the way to do that is to find opposite partners, for lack of a better term. So here's an angle of 9, and its opposite partner is this side that's opposite, which is 8.2. And then you've got another angle here that is 155, and his opposite partner is this side that's opposite, which is x. So all I did is I put those values into the equation, like so. And that is going so slow. But anyways, I substituted those values in, and then I simply did the algebra. Okay, and again, the algebra was as simple as cross multiplying, so that I ended up with x sine of 9 equals 8.2 sine of 155. So then I just divided both sides by sine of 9, divided this by sine of 9, so my x was isolated out, and I got an answer of 22.2, which we felt was reasonable because this side needs to be the longest side of the triangle because it is opposite of this angle here, 55. The bigger the angle, the bigger the side. All right, so what I have next is the exact same thing, just a different voice doing the same giving the same information. And so here's a lady that was doing sine law questions for her class.
Okay, we're going to do the sine law question. This is the sine law question from class that we have a little bit of a twist in it. The first thing that you want to do with your triangle is go ahead and label all the sides. And remember that the name of the side is determined by what angle it's opposite. So if this is angle A, the side opposite it will be our little a. Angle B, little b, C, little c. As you can see, I've got my sine formula written out already. Our goal here is to find side B. So really the first step is just to substitute all the information that you have in the triangle into your equation. So you can see that I know angle B is 50, so I can substitute that in, but I don't know side B. And angle C I know to be 30 degrees, but I don't know the side of it. Now to use the sine law formula, I need to have one of these fractions all filled in with the information both on the top and the bottom. And you can see that that hasn't happened here. So which leads me to believe that maybe back in the question I'm missing a piece of information. And I am. It would be helpful if I knew what angle A was. And I can figure that out quite easily. Angle A is 180 minus 50 minus 30, which is 100 degrees. Whenever I know two angles in a triangle, it's always a good idea to go right ahead and just fill in what that third one is. So I can actually now, instead of just writing sine A, I can write in the sine of 100. And so this gives me one whole fraction that everything is filled in. And I'm going to use the first fraction and the middle fraction to find my angle B. Obviously I want to use the middle one because that's the one that has the piece that I need to find. And I'm going to use my properties of cross multiplication here. I know that B is going to equal multiplying across the diagonal, so 14 times sine of 50 divided by what's left over, sine of 100. And I'm reminding myself again, sine of 50 is its own entity. This is a decimal that my calculator will give me. So I'm not going 14 times 50. I'm doing 14 times the sine of 50. And in my calculator, the answer, once I've typed that all in, works out to be 10.9 centimeters. That's it.
Okay, so same question, and she just cross-multiplied using the sine law. So we're going to do something similar here. There's a question we did before. That's a mess. That was on 472. So here's, we've already done that one, I believe. No, we haven't. Let's get rid of all that because I did it before, but then I hit the don't save button when I did this the first time. So call me stupid. So here's a question. I'm looking for the length of GH. GH is this one right here. It is opposite of this angle, which I don't know, but I'm going to have to do some fancy subtracting to figure out that it's 180. Subtract these two, and those two add up to 95, which is 95, which means this is going to be 85. So that's 85 degrees. So I set up my ratio here, and using the sine law, it's going to be, I'm going to take the sine of this over my unknown, so it's sine of 85 over h is going to equal, and there's a fraction that I do know, an opposite partner, sine of 51 over 7.8. All right, so like I said before, here's the hardest part of getting this, is to make sure you've got a ratio that you can work with. So I'm going to multiply this out, and I'm going to go h sine of 51 equals 7.8 sine of 85. Divide both sides by sine of 51. Divide sine of 51, and you end up with h equals this. So you pop that in your calculator. If you've got a graphing calculator, display calculator, you just stick it right in as is. If you don't, and you've got one that doesn't display the work, what you need to do is figure out the sine of 85, multiply that by 7.8, get an answer, take your answer and divide it by the sine of 51 in that order. And if you do that, you'll get an answer of 7.0. All right? And again, doesn't seem reasonable. No, I got the wrong question here. I think that the answer is 8.6. Let me just double check that. Because 7.0, if that was 7.0, that would be an unreasonable answer, simply because this here side, or 7.0, can't be less than that side because this angle is bigger. So let's check the book, and I think it says that the answer is 8.6. But let's just double check that. All right, page 473. And my bad, the answer is 8.6. So this answer here is actually 8.6, which is way more reasonable because that's the biggest angle, so that's got to give you, this has to give you the biggest side right here. Okay? All right. So here's another question that I did earlier and then didn't hit save, so I got to do it again. But for you, I would do anything. So here we go. We're looking for angle G. Now this is a different question because you're going to have to use a second function sign because that's how you figure out angles. You're giving the calculator the information, and it's telling you the angle based on that information. So we're looking for this, but we don't have an opposite partner, so we might be pooched, you might think, but we're going to work our way through this. What I do have is I have this length, which is 6.1, but I don't know its opposite partner. And I do have this angle, and I know its side that's opposite that. So I can set up sine of 65 over 8.6 would equal sine of j over 6.1. And if I can figure out what j is, that's going to give me 2 of the 3 angles in the triangle. It's going to give me that angle, and I already know this angle. Well, then I'm just going to go 180 subtract the other 2 angles, or that angle, and I should be good to go from that point. So let's do this workout. Let's work this out. Let's take this and go, hang on here, let's use a fancier color, just something to pop your eyes out. We're going to go sine of j over 6.1, and that's that information, equals the sine of 65 over 8.6. And there's a fraction that's filled in, and that's that information. Using my cross multiplying, I'm going to get 8.6 times the sine of j equals 6.1 times the sine of 65. Divide both sides by 8.6. Divide by 8.6. And now I'm at a point where, if you remember, I'm going to cancel those out or divide those out. When I got this situation where I'm looking for the sine of a number, I'm going to say that instead of sine of j equals this, I'm going to look for j, which would be the second function of sine of this fraction. So I'm just going to replace this so I don't have to rewrite it. I'm going to replace that. So I got sine, what are we doing here? Why is that working? There we go. Sine of j equals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace sine of j equals with just j. Hello. J is the sine to the -1 of that. So again, if you've got a graphing calculator, you're going to plop this into it. You're going to take this information, you're going to say sine to the -1, and then you're going to put this in brackets, and you're going to divide it out, and you'll get an answer that tells you that j is 40 degrees. Well, that's fine. We know if this is 40 degrees, we're cooking, because we know this one is 65. So all we're going to do to figure out g, because that's the one we're looking for, is 180 subtract 65 plus 40, which is 105. So 180 subtract 105 gives us an answer of 75 degrees. And that, my friends, is our answer. I'm going to put degrees in here. 75 degrees. Okay, so we've worked that out using the sine law again. And the sine law is not difficult to use. It's very easy to use, in fact, but it's setting up the question that can become cumbersome depending on how you do it. So here's another question, and this is, again, out of your textbook. On page, what is that? There's on page 473. This is the check your understanding question on the right-hand side. You should try this. Okay, I'm not going to work it out because the answer is down below. But again, I'm looking for n. I'm looking for this angle to the nearest degree. Well, that's that one. Well, if I figure out p, I can figure out n, because then I would know 2 angles here. I'd know this angle and this angle right there. And once I know 2 of them, I just go 180 subtract the 2 of them, and that'll tell me. So how do I figure angle p? Angle p, I would just do this. I go sine of 92 over 118 is equal to sine of p over 10. And once I solve this information, I'd get the angle. Then I'm going to use it just to go 180 subtract 92 subtract whatever the angle p was. And that'll give me my angle of n. Oh, and then going back here, here's example 3. And the one thing I want you to watch for when they're asking you to solve triangles is this piece of information right here. I want you to ignore it. So wherever you see show that only one triangle can be drawn, that's something that's going to take a little bit of work on your part and my part to do together. So I'm going to do that with you when we get back. So if you see this, just ignore it. All right? So we won't worry about this piece of it at all. We're just going to worry about solving that triangle. That's what we're going to worry about, is this thing right here. So when we're solving a triangle, we want to solve angle R. So I'd go sine of R over 8 equals sine of 55 over 12. So that'll tell me those two angles. Once I know that angle, I can tell you what angle Q is. So it's going to be 180 subtract. Once I know what angle Q is, I do the sine law again with angle Q and that unknown side, I'll call it X. And I could use 55 over 12 or whatever this angle of R is here over 8, and I'll solve the ratio that way. So you're going to have to do the sine ratio twice to figure out the entire triangle. And just remember, when you're solving triangles, you're solving for everything. All right? And again, I'm not going to do this question. This is check your answer question. Just draw it out. And again, this part right here, that you're going to ignore. Okay? So you're just going to have to draw this out. Now, when you're drawing this out, you've got to be careful here. Triangle DEF, so just randomly draw a triangle. It doesn't have to be to scale. It doesn't have to be right. And label it DEF. I just randomly picked one. And I know that F to E is 8 because it tells me so. So I'm going to put that there. And angle D is 80 degrees. So I'm going to put that there. And then side D to E, this side right here, they tell me is 5. So there's your information. So now you just have to solve that, you have to solve that, and you have to solve this length here. Okay, using the sine law. Once you've finished that, I want you to work on these questions. This is what I expect you to have done when I get back. The work text, page 478. We're going to do questions 3 to 5, 7, 9, and 10. And then out of the purple exercise book, that handout that you'll have, you're going to work on exercise 8, questions 1 to 7. None of them are extremely hard. Make sure you draw them out and make sure you follow the rules of drawing triangles properly, that an angle is, say, labeled angle D. Its opposite side is going to be labeled small d. And then you can just proceed from there. All right, don't forget to use Mrs. Fickert as a resource. Text me if you need. And I'll see you in a week, and good luck.